Okay, the purpose of this video is to review some of the really important figures that are going to be covered in Exam 3. I'm going to start off with a series of reflexes, and here we're starting with the simplest reflex. This is called the stretch reflex. I gave an additional name for this reflex in class. It's called the patellar tendon reflex. And that patellar tendon is located down here where you see the hammer striking. This stimulates a special sensory receptor called a proprioceptor. And what this sensory receptor will do is start an action potential that you see here. And this action potential will travel up this neuron as it goes to the spinal cord. The important common feature that you see in all of these reflex diagrams is that this neuron travels through the dorsal root that you see here. Along that dorsal root you see the ganglion, and you see the cell body of that neuron sitting there. When we talk about neurons in terms of morphology, these sensory neurons you see here are always unipolar, meaning they're mostly axons, and all of those cell bodies are located in that dorsal root ganglion. This is a very simple reflex where you see that neuron as it goes through the dorsal root into the spinal cord. It synapses down here in this section where the motor neuron starts. This particular section of the gray matter is the anterior gray horn. So generally all motor neurons start down here in this anterior gray horn. This happens to be one that is somatic, meaning that when you follow this neuron, it's going to go out to a skeletal muscle. So somatic motor neurons always innervate skeletal muscles. And the next important reflex, we have still a sensory neuron. Another word for sensory neuron, we could also call this an afferent neuron. So you see the afferent signal coming up from a pain stimulus. And now we have a white neuron, which is an interneuron. It's between two other neurons. And this interneuron has two branches, which are collaterals. This one collateral, which is going to go up to the brain and take the pain signal. And then this other smaller collateral, which is going to stimulate the motor neuron. In this case, we have the biceps brachii being stimulated. And the purpose of this was to pull away from that pain stimulus. In a more complicated reflex like the crossed extensor, you'll notice that the overall effect of this one is that you have a pain stimulus in one limb, and it actually causes a response in both limbs to pull away on one side where the stimulus is and actually stabilize your other lower limb. So the important points from this: still, you have that afferent neuron, the sensory neuron taking the pain signal. You've got a white interneuron. And now the important points you need to follow are these gray neurons, which are your somatic motor neurons that go down to the different muscle groups. On the side where there is pain, you see the flexor, which is the hamstring group being stimulated to contract. And then on the other side, you have the extensors being stimulated, and those are the quadriceps muscles. And then a little more complicated reflex that involves integration in the brain is the Babinski reflex. And with an adult, the normal response is the curling or flexing of the toes in the plantar reflex. And then in infants that haven't developed the connections to give a proper response to the signal is the Babinski sign, where the toes are actually extending.